Welcome to the latest edition of the Dynamic Political Centrism Podcast, hosted by Alan Steinberg, produced by Dr. Yonatan Yoni Yaris the Doc. This week's special guest, Brent Johnson, political reporter for NJ.com and the Star Ledger.
Good evening and welcome. I am Alan Steinberg, the host of Dynamic Political Centrism, and tonight we have a special show. It is our end of the year wrap up. And all three of us are going to talk about the events and give our opinions. We're free to give a lot of opinions, and Brent, as long as it doesn't get you in trouble with the folks back at events, say whatever you want.
Yeah,
I don't care if you go on and say Alan Steinberg is a schmagegi, but everybody is free to give opinions. I have some opinions that some will regard as toxic tonight, so. I'm ready to go.
All right.
Okay. Well, let me call upon Yoni, Doc Yoni. He will read off the topics. And after he reads off each one, I will comment, and then Brent will comment, and then Yoni will comment. He spent a lot of time in this past year listening. I think it's altogether appropriate that he has the opportunity to opine as well. So, Doc Yaris, it's yours. But first, let me welcome once again. This has been a great honor for us in 2026 because so many weeks we were fortunate to have on Brent Johnson, who has worked himself up, quite frankly, to the young star of journalism in the state of New Jersey. And for us to get him week after week, it didn't just help our ratings. It gave us a higher plane of discussion. So, Brent, welcome. And I only have one comment for you before we get started. Why are the Mets making all these stupid moves? I don't
know. I have still not. Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure to join you guys. Thank you for having me. Second of all, I'm still not over Pete Alonso, who is my favorite man.
I'm not either.
That's the one. I mean, it seemed that Edwin Diaz, they played too cute and screwed around.
We knew he was going though.
Yeah, and then Nimmo, I get McNeil, but Alonso, forget about just even the attachment that a right-handed power hitter at Citi Field is necessary. So I don't. Obviously, the off season's not over. I don't see the whole vision yet, but you have to give pause and be like, I don't know what's going on.
Well, I got my tickets. I have a package. It's one of the best bargains. I have the two best bargains in New York. One is the opera. People don't know how cheap opera is, and I love opera, and I love Lisette Oropesa, who I think is greater than any ball player even. And I also love baseball. I got this whole package of 20 tickets for a grand total of $575. That's a quarter of the season. I have excellent seats, which I can't get over. And in fact, they really take care of you. I have the opener. Paul Skeens will hopefully be pitching for the Pirates in the opener.
It should be.
And for that, I asked them, why did they give me a discount? And they said, well, for the opener, we needed to accommodate a few guests. And we moved you over a little bit. And I saw where they moved me to. It was not a downgrade at all. So kudos to the Mets management, but make some better choices. I mean, Alonso is a heartbreaker.
Yeah, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now that I don't know the final product. It's kind of like a Bob Ross painting, where it starts with the little trees. And, so I also reserve the right to be upset if opening day comes and I'm not happy with the product.
Well, yes, I'll be upset with you. And Clay, they may be getting Clay Bellinger. Who knows? I mean, that's what has always been great about the hot stove league in baseball, the off season. And I'll comment on more in terms of predictions for the coming year. So,
yes.
Doc, it's all yours. Host privilege. I turn this over to you to call upon us for individual topics.
All right. So instead of going over all the topics, I feel like that'd be overwhelming, putting my teacher hat on. So we're going to go one topic at a time so that way we're focused and attentive, and then we'll go from there. So I think as a political podcast, I think there's not a bigger story than the massive landslide win by Mikey Sherrill in the gubernatorial race, and in addition to the Democrats picking up so many seats in the assembly.
I agree with you that that's the big story. Now, let me give you a quick opinion. I can't get over this election because now I'm expressing an opinion. I have always been straightforward with my listeners. I helped out with I participated in the Chitterelli campaign, but I wouldn't have been upset if he just lost. I've had winners and losers, and I've always been able to move on. I can't move on in this case because I think she ran a filthy campaign. And the best story on this campaign was Terrence McDonald, who, like Brent, is a young star. But Brent did an article about her implying that Jack Chitterelli was a mass murderer. That was filthy. It was also filthy when she implied that there was some bad status problem with his accounting license when none existed. You know, if she knew that she was going to win, and that the main factor, which we all agree now, and accounted for her landslide, and I don't deny reality, it also accounted for the Democrats being in a terrific position for the congressional race this year. But she didn't have to do what she did. In fact, I'm working on a piece on this whole thing, why I can't move on from the ugliness of the Cheryl campaign. I've never condemned a winner before. I never have, but this made me sick. And now you guys can disagree with me and tell me how out of line I am. That's okay. That's the beauty of the show.
No, this was a very nasty election, and nastier than I thought. I think a lot of us thought it was going to. It's also a sign, you've heard a lot from Democrats in the wake of this that, we it goes to show how she was underestimated. She was underappreciated, but I didn't hear many Democrats behind the scenes saying, "We got this." The thought was this was going to be a very close race. Most people, and I not to toot a horn, but like I only talk to people in the know, and most Democrats behind the scenes would tell me that it's a toss up. It's going to be close. So I think those moves that both Chitterelli and Cheryl made, Jack going after her Navy record and her going after his business record, it both was a sign of how close they thought it was. Otherwise, you wouldn't get that way. If you really thought you had it in the bag, you wouldn't need to do that. So I think it was a sign of how close everyone thought it was. But it was a very vicious campaign. There were you could see it in that second debate. It just looked like two people that didn't like each other very much.
Well, I agree with you, but hard-hitting campaigns I don't mind, and I won't comment on the Navy record. I have my own thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But hard-hitting campaigns I enjoy. I don't like when they get into character assassination, and that's what she did.
My question
go ahead.
Is that we're looking at it. I feel like the shutdown played a large role in that, and that this was a way for people to give the protest about that going on, because that's really what shifted the tenor. When you started looking about the loss of SNAP, looking at major issues of at home.
I agree with you on that.
I think that I'd be curious had the shutdown not occurred, would that have brought us back to having a little bit of a closer race?
But you're making my point.
Great
I
point.
didn't mind that the race was close.
Yeah.
I minded how dirty it got. If she had all this going for her, why get into the mud? Why get into go ahead, Brent.
What's interesting about this race, because that was the focus for a long stretch of time. It was after those debates, it was focus on the military, on the Navy stuff, and the accusation of killing kids. And it was all this, look at how crazy this race has gotten. And then the shutdown happened. Then it shifted to the Gateway Tunnel. Then it shifted to SNAP
the
benefits.
Gateway Tunnel, she was right to raise.
Yeah.
I will defend her on that.
And I think what she did well at the end was they honed in on the shutdown. It honed in on Trump is affecting you, and Jack is going to agree with that. And I think that was a message. She tied Trump to the economy when it came to SNAP and
I have no problem with her doing that.
Yeah, I get your point in what you're saying that it was too vicious. I'm just saying I think Doc is right that what the final 2 weeks. I think if this race ended 3 weeks earlier, there was a much stronger chance. Not only was going to be closer, but that Jack had a better shot to win.
Well, I'll agree with both of you, but I'll state it another way. If Kamala Harris had been elected president in 2024, and it was Jack Chitterelli running against Mikey Sherrill, Jack would have won under those circumstances because the whole issue was the incumbent. The incumbent was Donald Trump and his unpopularity. but I think Kamala Harris would have been very unpopular also. So
I think that's probably
that
true.
was the advantage of non-incumbency.
Yeah, because usually, usually whoever in the tradition in New Jersey is whoever wins the White House the year before, that party is favored to lose the governorship the following
Right.
year. Murphy was the one that actually broke that a few years ago.
And years ago, Tom Kean broke that.
Yes, Tom Kean did it and Phil
Yes.
Murphy did it. So yeah, the thought is, yeah, that it would have been a much easier road for Jack. And I feel like a lot of things, and this was a tough one to gauge for Chitterelli because he took the risk of, I'm going to go more in on Trump. I'm going to take his endorsement and align myself more with him, which made sense based on last year's results. I understand that. But in the end, I don't think anybody predicted exactly what would happen in those final 2 weeks.
Well, as you know, Brent, I am perhaps the leading anti-Trump Republican journalist in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I have no problem, Jack allied himself with Trump. I think that he felt he had to in order to be nominated. I regret that, but that did not lessen my enthusiasm for him. But nevertheless, there's no question that Trump cost him the election. And I have no problem with her bringing up all the negatives. It's just that she didn't talk about him as a mass murderer. That's ridiculous. And that's the kind of thing that disillusions children like that.
But I think the problem is the mudslinging has become a portion of every campaign season. We have gone from having politicians who we aspire to be like to politicians we tell our children not to be like.
Yeah, but this was worse. Go ahead, Brent.
No, I understand that, and it was as I said, this was the most difficult, maddening, confrontational, unpredictable governor's race I've covered before. It was a weird race, and I still have aftershocks and still have an aftertaste in my mouth about covering it. It's weird because you can look back with hindsight and see all these things, and in the end, it was a lot of questions and a lot of confusion, and but in the end, Democrats had a good night, not just with her, but with the legislature. And the question is, what happens from here?
It's interesting. Well, we'll get to this in the prediction part of the show because I have a slightly different outlook as to how the congressionals will be affected. But we'll wait until Doc calls upon it for that. But there's no question. Look, one of the factors why I love New Jersey politics, you're never bored.
No,
That's true.
But this is something I could have done without. Look, I've been through tough elections. I was campaigning for Tom Kean in 1981. That I am now the age of 76. Okay, but I was a youngster then, at the age of 42, and I'll never forget. That was a hard-hitting campaign, but it was a wonderful campaign because both of them talked about issues. Both of them hit the other hard. Florio, at that time, Reagan was unpopular. He ended up being one of our most popular presidents. But he hit Tom Kean very hard on that, and Kean responded. That's the kind of campaign I wish we saw more of.
Yeah, I have heard a lot from Republicans being like they felt Jack didn't have the right message in the end, and that you needed Republicans to be different. You've heard a lot from John Bramnick saying, well, this goes to show that Republicans need to come back to the middle. These are questions they're going to be talking about. I mean, the Republican Party's got a lot of rebuilding to do. And the question for Democrats is going to be, can they seize on this momentum? And will this give them a chance to double down and maybe even increase their numbers in Congress? I don't know. 3 weeks is a lifetime in politics, as we learned from this election.
When we get to the prediction part, I'll tell you the three Republicans I think are to look out for.
Okay.
Be interesting. Doc, anything further on this?
No, I think we're good, but I think keeping in the New Jersey line, we're now still in the lame duck season for New Jersey politics.
Yeah.
And it's not been a dull moment. We had the confrontation between Senator Kim and State Senator Jim Beach that went viral and went across the nation and picked up coverage on multiple news stations of that story, but then seeing that bill suddenly be pulled back real fast.
Yeah.
We've got the cell phone ban coming up. It's been getting a lot of press.
Yeah, this is the kind of a lame duck that got a lot of attention early because there was the bill that Scutari pushed to change the investigatory powers in the state. And obviously, there was so much pushback from the public and even from some Democrats that they didn't move forward with it. He said there's going to be a new bill and it might not focus as much on the comptroller. We'll see. That'll be after lame duck. But so a lot of the tension, a lot of the drama happened early with that. Now there's still a few big bills out there, and the biggest one just passed, actually, the bill banning cell phones across the state schools. Now we're waiting for the governor to sign it, and Murphy has expressed support for that. He's
My granddaughter better keep that cell phone in her pocket, otherwise she has to answer to me.
So that's going to be, and that how that gets implemented, and that's going to be another big thing to watch out for. And that's the kind of bill that affects. I mean, there's drama and controversy about the comptroller bill, but I don't know if it reached the general public. The cell phone bill will. That is something that's going to affect lots of parents. Doc and I have young kids, and I know my daughter is going to be starting elementary school next year, so it's going to be top of mind for me. So that's the kind of bill that affects everybody, and people will pay attention to.
Oh, I agree, but I think the thing that will affect people the most, and Cheryl's already on the lookout for this. I don't fault her for this. There's going to have to be a tax increase. I don't know what kind of tax increase. And she wanted this job. She's got it. But I thought that when she confronted the legislators and said, I want you to vote for this, as I understand it, I want you to vote for this tax hike so I don't get saddled with that. That's in effect the way I understood her. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's kind of the
I've
way
heard the same thing. The Democrats have said that, and she was rebuffed by Democratic leaders in the legislature.
Well, I'm glad they did, because you've got to take responsibility. You've got to take leadership, and that's not taking leadership when you say, "Hey, you guys all vote for this tax hike so I don't get stuck." That's cowardice. That's not leadership.
Well, it was one of those things in the campaign. Taxes obviously played a big role, because she accused him of being high tax Jack, and she was going around saying he was going to raise the sales tax, he was going to do this with taxes, and he's raised taxes throughout his career. And then she was put on. Initially, they asked her in a debate, are you going to raise the sales tax? And she said, well, I haven't really decided yet. I'm leaving all options on the table. And then like a day later, I think she put out kind of a statement that not all of us saw that said, I will not raise the sales tax. So, she kind of backed her into a corner there, that she said she was going to raise the sales tax. And then, you're coming into this. And by all accounts, Republicans and Democrats have both told me these next few state budgets are going to be hellish.
No question.
Have to do something. So it's kind of a catch-22 here.
Well, it's going to be a political judgment as to which tax is least toxic politically.
Speaking of the budget, I want to note in there about school funding. I think it's going to come to its head this year.
Yeah. All right, why don't we take school funding next? That's your expertise.
Yeah, so I think actually we're going to continue down the New Jersey route. I think you can't go anywhere without talking about property taxes and school funding, because it is a mess. And it's only going to get worse. I
mean, this is something we've heard talked about for years. Republicans banging the drum saying it needs to change. And you had Steve Sweeney, the former state Senate president. They passed S2, which is a law that changed some things, but the thought is that more needs to be done. Yeah. School funding is the kind of thing that if your district gets a lot of it and it gets its fair share, you're very happy. But those that lose money, but the formula says gets their fair share, that's going to be a controversial thing. No one really wins in this. It's kind of you can't go and say that everybody's happy, because that formula is not perfect. And the thought is the formula has to change. So this ties in with the budget, because that's most of our taxes.
It is the budget. Yeah. It really is the budget. Yeah. Everything else you can freeze. You can't freeze this. And I was basically in charge, together with the late Jim Harkness, back in 1992. School funding fell under my domain. I was senior policy advisor for the Assembly on Education. And we negotiated hard with Florio. We thought we had a good formula, but the problem is everybody who is an avid advocate, and I don't think these people are ill-minded. I think they're well-minded, but there's only so much you can spread around. And the complaint always is that the urban 30 are not getting enough. And unfortunately, the pie isn't big enough to satisfy what avid advocates want. So I have no answer as to what will work on school funding. I think it will be a political judgment, and no one really gets the politics of this very well.
No, but I think in terms of those districts, it's also how much money you can keep throwing at it and results aren't changing. money doesn't necessarily equal better results. You need to be talking about changes on the ground, not just be like, New Jersey likes to throw money at the problem, but never actually get to the brass tacks and try to resolve and come to a solution.
Well, I agree with you, but that's why I have advocated outcomes-based funding. I think there should be based on outcomes, and that ensures that the urban 30 are following the program, so to speak, and that their money is being spent on the goals and objectives of the state.
I think consolidation has to. We have way too many schools. We have way too many towns that we've got to consolidate. We've got to bring back.
I agree.
People love home rural, but we can't afford home rural. We can't afford these massive numbers of schools. Or like 536 at some point is a number I've heard for number of school districts. That's insane for a state of our size.
Well, let me ask Brent something. You know, how many years have you been with the Jersey Advance?
Since 2009. So
all right, that's geez, I didn't think it was that many.
Years.
16 years.
16 years.
How many times have you heard this is the year we're going to solve school funding?
Every year.
And how many times did it fail? Bingo.
Yeah, I mean, it's that forever struggle of we have too many towns and too many districts, but no one wants to consolidate. How many consolidations have we seen in recent years? Princeton's the only one I can think of in recent history. And that's not enough. And you hear every candidate, excuse me, you hear every candidate bring it up. And that's one way we're gonna drop property taxes. We're gonna solve school funding is by consolidating districts. And
well, it would solve the property tax problem if you came up with an equitable situation on school funding. But it's the cart before the horse. Yeah. It just isn't happening.
I don't think a lot of people realize that the majority of their property tax bill goes to school fund. It goes to local schools.
Absolutely.
I also don't think people don't realize that property taxes are locally levied, so they're always looking to the state to solve the problem, and they don't realize there's local things that can happen to make it different.
And one other thing, when the income tax was passed under Governor Byrne in 1976, I believe it was, when that was passed, the income tax funds were committed to property tax relief, i.e. school funding. Yeah. That was the understanding, and it has never happened. Those monies are fungible. They get mixed in with sales tax receipts, corporate tax receipts, and it just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating. And that's why, I am surprised that there isn't more anger among the electorate of New Jersey, because that's a typical example.
Well, usually taxes are the main thing that make voters angry. Ask Jim Floria.
It was a good friend of mine too on the opposite side.
And it's usually what people get most angry about in the state. And what made this election different was you would think that would have driven more people to Republicans. And two things probably happened here. I think it was a dual thing of that she tied him to Trump. Not just Trump is bad for democracy, as you'll hear a lot of Democrats say, but he was bad economically. You'll hear the one big beautiful.
Well, that was all legitimate on her part.
Yeah, and then two,
that's why she didn't have to get into the dirt. That was
yes. And then the other thing was she called him high tax Jack, which was played on both those things, and whether that was, you could argue that she was disingenuous on that, and that she lied about his tax record. And he did the same to her on energy rates and said that, but that was it. And I think it was the combination of high tax Jack and all the things about Donald Trump.
I agree with you. Let me mention one thing. They talk a lot about affordability. I do not believe that affordability is something that can be solved at the state level. It is a national issue. It is a national issue that involves inflation, and most importantly, the Federal Reserve. Most voters don't even know what the Federal Reserve is. It is the most important factor in our economy. I had Murray Sabrin on as a guest a couple times, who gave pretty good explanations of the role the Federal Reserve plays in inflation and employment and all the rest. I read a lot of books, and one of the books I read was the Selden book this summer. And it talked about how the Depression came about. So the voters need an education on the Federal Reserve and what it does, but they don't get it from our candidates of either party.
No, it's tough. And, I was actually watching a movie the other night, The Other Guys, with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and they walk into a lawyer's office, and he's the lawyer for the Federal Reserve, and Mark Wahlberg's trying to explain or learn what the Federal Reserve is, and he doesn't quite get it. He thinks it's a big jail, federal jail.
Well, that's what a lot of people
No,
think.
yeah, and it really is. It involves the federal government.
It's funny, but it's not funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's this very esoteric thing, but it's very important. And I I do think people get the general gist of like what's going on with tariffs and what's going on with interest rates and stuff, but it does go a little bit above their heads. And I think you're right; it is a national issue, and these are very important things that they're national things, and they're gonna have a big effect on the state level too. But people do know their property taxes are high, and they don't necessarily know who to blame.
Right.
It's very easy. You tend to blame who's at the top. It's the same thing with why Trump gets blamed for the shutdown. You could argue that obviously it's the Democrats who technically shut the government down by not agreeing to this deal or not agreeing to the funding bill. But no one's going to blame the Democrats. They're going to blame Donald Trump because he's at the top. It's the same thing Chris Christie learned with the shutdown in 2017, that yes, maybe it was Vinnie Prieto that technically shut the state government down, but everyone blamed the guy at the top, especially when he showed up on a beach. So you tend to blame who's in charge. You tend to blame, and I think Donald Trump got blamed, and Republicans in turn got blamed for this shutdown, and that hurt Jack and helped Mikey.
I agree with you on that. But what I find interesting is you mentioned the shutdown. When Chris Christie became unpopular, it was just a steady cliff down. Yeah. He was finished.
Yeah.
I do not understand the allegiance. People say, well, that's because you're out of touch. I try to be in touch as much as possible, but I do not understand the hold that Trump has on voters, even during bad times. I just will never get that. I read something today, and this is interesting. My son has a pretty good political mind, but he decided not to go into politics when he saw everything I put up with. So my son is a public relations executive dealing with high-tech matters. Mm-hmm. And I sent him something. There was an article on the web today about the Bush family is really attempting, and I love the Bush family personally. I didn't always agree with them, but I served under George W. Bush. I have a lot of affection for them. I would love to see them have a bigger voice in the party. They've been out of it, but I'd love to see them have a bigger voice, at least to bring back civility, which is something that will never happen with Trump. So I sent that to my son. His response was, that'll be a 10-year process. And I said, you know what? You're right.
Well, you could argue it's been a 10-year process in the other direction, that everything changed in 2015 when he joined. We're 10 years down the road now. I wonder if there's maybe a bit of a course correction going on, and then it'll take 10 years to go out of it. But he still has 3 more years left of his presidency. So the thing I've always found interesting about Trump is, to many people, he is a unicorn in the sense that, he's this rich guy who puts his name on buildings and has gold, everything. And to a lot of people, he's the guy who was on TV. It is him that is the idol, that it's everything falls. And that's why he doesn't do well sometimes in midterms. It's why aligning with him doesn't always help you in purple areas. And I wonder if there is a course correction when he is no longer the nominee, whether J.D. Vance or whomever Republicans go to will have the same kind of effect, because he doesn't have the unicorn sheen that Donald Trump has. So I don't know if that's what it is. But
I agree with you about the unicorn sheen.
Yeah.
So the question is, how long is it going to last?
Yeah,
I've never seen anything like this.
And I do wonder if the next presidential election is what we also do. We talk about how we tend to go back and forth between governors too. The parties go back and forth, and how this is the first time since 1961 that we've had one party win 3 terms. We're very similar on the national level. The last time one party was elected 3 times in a row was the 1980s.
Right.
Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. So it's been 40 years since that has happened. So, we do tend to have course corrections. And I get that was the idea of the framers of the Constitution, was we have every few years we have a chance to throw, who's out, through who's in, out. So maybe it will be 10 years from now. Maybe it'll take another election. I don't know. But I can't imagine that politics is forever changed. There's just too much. There's too much that has look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, there's been too much of that. People who have a come to light moment and change. But I don't know. And that's not to say anything of positive that President Trump, take anything away positive that President Trump has done, or to hold his feet to the fire for anything terrible. It's just the fact that politics has changed in the last 10 years. It's become more vicious. It's become more personal. It has become more dramatic and circus-like, for lack of a better term. And
I think that's the best term.
Or whether we go back to something more like, the debate between, Dan Quayle and the famous one where he said, "You're not like I knew JFK and you weren't JFK." That kind of thing. I wonder if we see debates like that.
I got to tell you the irony of that. I have to mention this. Dan Quayle will go down in history as a great patriot because it was Dan Quayle that talked Mike Pence into not going along with Trump when Trump wanted him not to certify the returns in the House of Representatives. Yeah. So Dan, I always liked Dan. I always thought he was underrated.
Yeah.
But in that process, he proved himself to be a great American. It just bothers me. He never got considered for he got a bad image because of the National Guard thing, and he was portrayed as this callow youth, which he was not. He's doing very well right now.
That was to say nothing negative of Dan Quayle. I'm just thinking back to the kind of.
No, I know you weren't saying anything negative about Dan. I just have to throw that in there.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, but I'm thinking back to the kind of debates we had. The Barack Obama, John McCain debate, even where the famous were the woman in the crowd called him an Arab, and McCain stood her down. I don't know if we ever go back to that, but I do also think I don't know if we forever stay at the idea of yelling at each other. At least I hope
it is yelling at each other. It is a cacophony of yelling and screaming and shouting each other down. And it just, I'm a political junkie, but even I have reached my limit.
Yeah.
And it surprises a lot of people. I feel that way.
Speaking of reaching limits, we could go on for hours on New Jersey, but there's a whole nation we could also talk about.
Yeah.
So on the national, I put international there as well, because I think we can't go without mentioning that Trump's biggest victory, I think, that will solidify him in the history books, is that bringing home the 22 remaining hostages in the Gaza, Palestinian, Hamas-Israel war. I think that will go down as probably one of the greatest things he's ever done. While everything else, other challenges that have gone on. So I want to discuss, we already a little bit national, but I want to start with that and the other things we've experienced on a national level, and also talk about the Supreme Court, which is going to play an outsized role when we start talking about next year.
Well, it's one thing Alan and I talked about. Alan and I talked about this when that happened, that we both thought, I think we were texting about it, was that I think that was going to benefit Jack, especially in Lakewood, which we did see he did win. But I feel like it got overshadowed by the immediacy of the shutdown happening right after it. I think that Trump scored that victory on a Monday. I'm making this up, but he scored it on a Monday, and Gateway happened like on a Wednesday. And I think like it overshadowed. And I think that kind of played out in the governor's race.
Well, I agree with you completely. The significance of Gateway. I worked on the Gateway project when I was at EPA, and Cheryl was right. It is definitely a needed priority. There's no question about that. I have just a couple other things on a national level. I think the big story that is scary because people have not gotten their arms around it yet is the role of AI. AI is something that can either be a great benefit, it can be an environmental disaster because all these facilities absorb a lot of energy, a lot of heat, could lead to fires. Nobody really knows how they want to use AI yet. It looks like a great benefit to society, but we haven't gotten our arms around it yet. The other big story for me was, and Yoni and I share our feelings about Israel on this, but I am a person that finds Trump abhorrent, but he did something that was great for history. That is the attack when he supported Israel on the attack on Iran. I think that was long overdue, and that was something that had to be done. Iran is an existential threat to peace and security throughout the world. So that is something I give Trump credit for. But I have a problem. I have so many things I don't give him credit for that I oppose about him. that whenever I give them credit for something, people think I'm becoming a MAGA person. So I mean that's ridiculous.
I'm so over that. You can value and give credit and appreciate something does, but that doesn't mean that you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
It doesn't mean what?
It doesn't mean you're drinking the Kool-Aid. You're not like you're joining the cult of
No,
Trump.
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid.
No, I'm saying, but people keep thinking that. Like, I'm so over that philosophy from the outside, is that people apparently don't have big enough brains and minds to handle that. Sometimes you can agree with somebody you can't stand.
There's not a lot of gray area left in politics. There really is.
That is exactly the problem.
It's you're either one or the other on either side. Yeah, it's
that is exactly our problem.
Yeah,
without question.
It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that labels are for shirts, is that we're so stuck on labeling that we don't ever actually talk about the person in front of us or what's actually going on. We're so much saying that you're this, you're that, and that we haven't even had a conversation with them. But yeah, we've already labeled them as something.
Well, labeling does set the agenda a lot of times, and unfortunately, this is a case of it. It's going to be I think logic tells us that the Democrats, especially if the economy stays bad, the Democrats are going to get control of the House. They won't get control of the Senate because the map is not good for them. It may be better for them 2 years hence. But they are likely to get the House unless one thing happens. If there is a rebound in the economy, that could throw everything amok. Because all of a sudden Trump would be able to say, I told you so. And even if his tariff policy is awful and his tax policy benefits only the rich. However, having said that, if there is an economic rebound that gets to the working class, he could come back. That scares the hell out of me, but he could come back.
Well, 11 months is an eon, is eons in political.
That's right.
Time. Meaning, we're now just about to hit 2026, and you'll really see the congressional races kick into gear. But a lot can happen before. I mean, just ask what the difference between November 2024 and November 2025 for Republicans.
Exactly.
That's what we need to know.
But Brent, give us your view of these races coming up.
Yeah, this is New Jersey is going to have one of the biggest congressional districts races in the country. Tom Kaine's 7th district race. It always is a big race. The last two times his reelection was a big one, and he won by a larger margin than some people.
Who do you think his opponent's going to be?
I think it's going to be Rebecca Bennett. She's the favorite, which some people, Democrats are already calling her Mini Mikey. She is also a former Navy.
She flies the helicopter.
Yeah. She's also from North Jersey, and she looks the part. She has a good resume. But that's a crowded race without the county line.
What about Sarah Soy?
Yeah, she looks good as well. I mean, there's it is not a done deal for Bennett. There's going to be, without the county line, it opens up the idea that anybody could win. Although Cheryl kind of bucked that trend. She had the most machine support during the last year's primary. So we'll see. That's going to be a big race. So I don't expect it to be as easygoing for Tom Kaine as it was last time. He won by 5 points 2 years ago. I don't expect that this year. Chris Smith seems to be safe in the 4th district. I'd say Jeff Andrews probably safe in the 2nd. The question is, can you see someone make inroads there? The thought was going into this year before this past election was that Nellie Poe was going to be vulnerable in the 9th district, that Republicans could see that as a pickup seat. Maybe that's still the case, but I don't know if that's going to be as easy for them. But again, a lot can change in 11 months. But Kaine's seat is going to be a nationally watched race again. And then you do have Cory Booker's race for the Senate. He's easily the favorite. But it's not just going to be, the question is which Republican's going to run against him. There's whispers about Mike Testa, whispers about Alina Habba.
When I hear Testa, I can't buy that because
I think Testa might wait.
An excellent chance to be the next gubernatorial nominee.
Yes, I think Testa's going to wait for the governor's race, the next one. But you're going to need money. So does Habba get in because she has the access to Trump donors. If you see this as kind of like a fool's errand, kind of like a sacrificial lamb. Who knows? But the other thing to watch out is Booker is going to treat this race like a preview to his next presidential run.
And he is definitely going to make
a lot of television shows.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot New Jersey is always, important, and it's going to continue to be so at this congressional.
I think we also can't talk about without Mikey Sherrill's seat, and then the 13 candidates,
Right.
the army of like
it's like everyone who has a pulse and is a Democrat is running in that district.
and is eligible to run.
Yeah, the first big
I
race.
think Malinowski will get it. I think he's going to win that primary and win the election, but I wonder if the race is close, he might be making a mistake. I think he's going to win it, though. But having said that, he's got an excellent chance of being a future Secretary of State.
I can see that too. Yeah.
And why risk that on a congressional seat? He's already been in Congress.
Some people, get to Washington and miss it, and
they get Washington fever.
Yeah, I wouldn't count Brendan Gill out of that race either. He has a lot of the institutional Democratic support, but Malinowski's the name. Name recognition matters a lot in these things, and Malinowski is known to be a congressman. Gill is well known in Essex County as an Essex County commissioner. I think that race is going to be a big one to watch right at the beginning of the year, and whoever wins the primary then becomes the favorite to take it.
I think so too. I think that Brendan knows his way around the political circles.
Yes,
but there's a lot of opposition to him now that wasn't there a few years back.
Yeah,
and, we'll have to see.
Yeah,
but if I was a betting man, I'd bet on Malinowski.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I'm not a betting man because if I bet on politics, I would lose every single time. I would be broke.
Yeah. But yeah, so just, and then, there's a lot of other things to watch with just in general in New Jersey politics, because now we have a new administration. So all of this gets tied up in that. So we're going to wait to see what Cheryl does in her first 100 days. She said she's going to freeze utility rates. Is that something that people are going to watch immediately? Because that was a big.
I don't think she's going to be able to do that legally, though.
She'll definitely face legal blowback. So a lot of things to watch out for. New Jersey, as Michael Aaron always said, New Jersey never disappoints.
Michael was one of my favorite people. I miss him badly. Go ahead.
One last comment on Mikey. I also think it's very weird that she's very much rolling out her cabinet very slowly. Like it is beyond weird that we're at almost December 31st, and I think we know 3 people in the cabinet.
Yeah, and it's I haven't heard many leaks either. Usually around this time when Phil Murphy was taking office at the end of 2017, my phone wouldn't stop ringing with people saying, "Hey, who's going to be X? Who's going to be that? I've heard none of this, and I've heard well-entrenched Democrats be like, "I don't know who's going to be these things."
Well, who is going to be the biggest position is going to be one was filled already with Davenport becoming the Attorney General, and she was pretty highly reputed. But the question is, who's going to get state treasurer? Because that's the
big question. Yeah, that's the other big, the 3 big cabinet posts left, in my opinion. You have treasurer as number 1. 2 is education, and 3 is state police colonel.
I agree with you, but it's something. The concept of celebrity can be somewhat overrated when it comes to New Jersey cabinet picks.
Yeah,
I think most governors, and Cheryl's no different than anyone else, they want someone they're comfortable with, and they want somebody who they think could do the job. Liz Moyo, for example, who was treasurer, she did a good job, but who knew? Except if you were rooted in Trenton, where she had served on, I believe it was the Assembly staff or Senate staff.
Yeah,
who knew who she was?
Yeah,
but cabinet jobs are great jobs. I got to tell you, I had the equivalent of something that was better than a state cabinet job. I had Region 2 EPA, which is the second highest level of a regional appointee next to Attorney General or District Attorney, excuse me. And I know how great these jobs can be, especially if your boss gives you autonomy. I don't think I would have enjoyed working for Chris Christie because there was no autonomy there. But, these are great jobs. I'm sure that her desk has no shortage of resumes. I wonder how influential Dale Caldwell is going to be. Is he going to really be the executive officer to the commanding officer? Who knows?
It's always interesting. LGs have kind of not been as prominent as you'd think they'd be. Kim Guadagno might have been the most famous lieutenant governor at her time, simply because Christie spent so much time out of state that she was acting governor for so long.
Yes.
But I do, Caldwell was a very well-respected person. I heard a lot of good feedback during the campaign of how important
I have
he was
also.
to the trail. I've had pleasant interactions with him. He's also from my hometown in New Brunswick. So, I think he will be an influential person. He's also taking on a very important job. Secretary of State is a very critical cabinet position. So, we'll see. And I definitely think that you'll see more cabinet positions as we get back in the new year, because you're not going to have much more time. She gets sworn in January 20th. So we're kind of running out of clock here.
Yeah, we really are. But everyone thinks to themselves in New Jersey, if you're a legislator, whatever, you look in the mirror and you think of yourself as a cabinet member. So we'll see how many of these, see whether they are in a dream or whether they are on the boulevard of broken dreams.
He's got 6 weeks or so to get a budget address through. Maybe they'll give her till the beginning of March, but that clock hits off. That is a shotgun.
It is. But every administration, the same fear is voiced that there's not enough time. Somehow they get it done. And
it's just like my students and their homework.
Right? It's like your students with their homework.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Yeah.
Now, on a lighter subject, Yoni, don't we have sports next?
Yeah, so we're going to go to sports, and then we'll move on to our predictions and what we're anticipating. What were you anticipating for the future in 2026?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so sports. We already talked about the Mets.
I will give you the sports story of last year and this year that has received no recognition.
Go ahead.
But first of all, let me make a prediction. I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm biased. I think they'll take the Super Bowl again because they have one of the best defenses I've ever seen. And I've been following football for the NFL for 70 years. Their defense is incredible.
They do have
And you combine that with Saquon Barkley, I think that they will prevail in the Super Bowl. At least I hope so. But I think the real sports story of last year was the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think they are one of the most underrated sports teams in the history of sports. They won their second World Series in a row. That hasn't happened with a National League team since the New York baseball Giants of 1921-22. For years, I hated the Dodgers because I hated the move out of Brooklyn. I've gotten used to it now. I forgave them this year after 60 years. I forgave them because it's worked out. The Mets are occupying the same turf that the Brooklyn Dodgers once did. And I don't think New York could have supported three teams. They couldn't have supported the New York baseball Giants also. So they have a great National League entry in terms of fan enthusiasm. But the Dodgers, this is a great team they have. This is one of the greatest, well-balanced teams in terms of pitching, defense. And they just never, it's surprising because they're in a media capital, Los Angeles, but they've never gotten the attention except when Koufax and Drysdale were there. Not even Clayton Kershaw got that kind of attention. But if they win their third World Series in a row, they're going to have all the attention they can handle. And it's something in me. I'm not a Dodger fan. I was a Brooklyn Dodger fan, not a Los Angeles Dodger fan. But something within me hopes that they win again because they're good for baseball. They're a good group of guys, and they play the best brand of baseball you could find.
Well, three things about the Dodgers. One, that both my grandfathers were Brooklyn Dodger fans. We named our dog Hodges after Gil Hodges.
Right.
But two other things. One is that the Dodgers are also changing the landscape of how players are signed and how they're deferring money. So they're changing the dynamics of the baseball front office.
Very true.
They're kind of being what we thought the Mets were going to be under Steve Cohen. Kind of like this juggernaut of getting all these players and then winning every year. We haven't quite seen that happen under the Cohen years. I'm hoping that changes. The Dodgers are a force and the biggest force baseball has seen since the late 90s Yankees, which was a different kind of force. And I'm a Giants fan in football, so not much to be excited about, especially after we probably lost the number one.
You have my sympathies.
I know. I think the Bills are a team to watch for the Super Bowl coming up.
But boy, that game on Sunday.
Yeah,
I think the Patriots also.
Patriots, yeah, don't
I
count
think
the
that we've got 3 coaches in their first year who brought their teams from losing records into the playoff, which is unheard of.
Well, that is a phenomenon, yes.
Yeah.
I think the NFL has continued to overtake baseball as America's pastime. I think
I don't know about that, and I'll tell you why. The Steelers had a big game in Pittsburgh. I want if they played 80 professional football games a year. Do you think those games individually, and that's not physically possible, guys would be getting killed. Do you think those games individually would draw as well as baseball attendance has been fantastic over the last few years?
And I hope the CBA negotiations don't kill that in 2020.
I agree with you.
But I'll tell you this: the other sports story that I care about deep. I'm a diehard New York Knicks fan, and watching this Knicks team has been very good and has been soothing my soul while trying to figure out what the heck is going on with the Mets. I've at least been, although the Knicks are losing to the Pelicans right now. But
well, I'm rooting for the Knicks, even though I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. That's my Brooklyn.
Oh, really? So do you go back to the New Jersey years with the Nets?
No, I never rooted for them when they were in New Jersey. I root for them in Brooklyn because I am a Brooklyn lover.
Yes.
That's totally fair.
Huh?
You're Sixers. That's right. You're Phillies.
I'm Phillies. Sorry, I'm Sixers all the way through.
No, that's fine. You guys can share Dr. J. So
well, that's true.
Yeah.
I think going back to NFL, I think the other interesting story that was also political is the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime.
Yes.
And that became a national story. You've got Turning Point putting on their own halftime show. Who knows how that's going to go?
Right.
So I think also that impact and that
I
brought
wish they'd get the politics out of the Super Bowl.
I'm with you. I appreciate going for a diverse audience. I think having a Spanish-speaking artist is wonderful. But I think sometimes you got to read the tea leaves and pick the right year to do it.
It is weird, this argument we've had with pop culture and politics. There's always been politics in music. And I mean,
true.
John Lennon was political. Bob Dylan was political. Bruce Springsteen has been political well before everyone thought he was. It's weird that we can't enjoy things because of politics anymore. On both ends of the political spectrum, I would hate to live in a world where I can't enjoy something because of politics.
100%.
I agree, but that's happening with me now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching sports. Sports was the great diversion for me in 2025. I was so upset with the elections and with what was going on with Trump that when I would go to a Mets game, I'd forget all about it.
Yeah, and we're seeing it even on the Kennedy Center thing now. It's
that's a disgrace.
Politics have to seep into everything, and it defines how we think of things now. We don't think of things based on taste. Like we think of things based on our politics. Not everyone, obviously. I'm painting with a general brush. But I wish we could go back to the point where you could enjoy someone, whether they're conservative or whether they're liberal. And they could still be that. Like Bob Dylan.
As long as they're not bigoted or anything like that, let them have their politics themselves.
Exactly. I wish we could get back to that, but it's kind of a past that. We're out of the barn gate on that.
Well, I read where I had to persuade myself. I read where Francisco Lindor's wife is working for Mamdani. I had to take a deep breath, given my feelings on Mamdani. I took the deepest breath and I said, okay, I'll still root for the Mets. What does Francisco know about about Mamdani?
I'll tell you,
his wife does, but not he.
Between David Stern's fans saying, give him time, guys, he's going to be wonderful, between people still lamenting Pete Alonso, between the Lindor thing, between Nimmo and all, Mets Twitter is like the most miserable place to be in the world right now. Everybody's angry about something all over the place.
It sure
and
is.
You'd think Mets fans would be cathartic and come together and be like, let's enjoy misery together and figure this out. And everyone's miserable for different reasons and angry at each other.
You got to go to the Cavaliers in Cleveland for that. You got to go to even Philadelphia. They've got that down pat.
That's true.
The misery. I think Alan and I would be remiss for Alan's granddaughter if we didn't talk about the other sports story, the engagement of Travis and Taylor.
My daughter's she's going to be turning 5. She's a big Taylor Swift.
My granddaughter used to like her, but she's moved on to other performers now.
Yeah, Taylor Swift's like almost my age, so like she.
Yeah. It's exactly. We're outgrowing all these people.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this has been a great show, and we could use another hour of this, but the closing minute has
Give
come.
our last 5 minutes. Let's give our prediction and what we thought about
sure.
our closing thought on 2025 and our prediction and what we think or hope for in 2026. Alan, as the host, I defer to you first.
This is one time in my life where I'm at a loss for predictions. I don't know. That's the big difference with me this year. I don't know what the economy is going to do. My only safe predictions are sports. I think the Los Angeles Dodgers will win again. I think the Eagles will win again. But I think the one obsession America will have this year is AI. People don't know what AI is, but it is going to affect all our lives for better or worse. So I think that is going to be the real national focus, is going to be AI.
I do know that AI has kind of ruined social media videos in the sense that, like, now when you see something fantastic, you don't know whether it's real or not. And it's kind of ruined like I bet that's just AI. So I wish we went back to the world where we didn't have to wonder whether something was AI for a TikTok.
I agree, but I got to tell you something interesting. When I go on Google, and I go on a lot because of research for articles and stuff, that AI feature comes up with a lot of interesting stuff.
It does, and that's what it's programmed.
I'm astounded.
It does very good recipes.
There are things that, it's going to change our everyday lives, and the question is how much and how deeply, and how good or how bad.
And I'll say, education-wise, it's all over. I've got kids where I know they're doing it. It's changed. It will change how we teach, which is probably a good thing.
Thank you.
I think we got to prepare people for the 21st century, and we're not.
Political centrism.
But
check back each week for our new.
I think it's part of my daily life. I face it with students. I mean, I use it in terms of doing certain things.
Please subscribe.
So I think the appropriate use of technology. I think, Alan, going into the fall, into the new year, I think we got to do an episode on AI and bring in an expert on this one and have a conversation, because I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who we would have as a guest, though. I think it's a good idea, but no one's that recognized. But we'll talk about it.
All right, and then
I could learn.
What have you got?
My predictions are Democrats will regain control of the House nationally by a slight margin. You will see it'll be a very close race in the 7th district. I would not be shocked if a Democrat unseated Tom Kean. That's politically, but a lot. I guess I said 11 months is a lot of time, and a lot can change. Nothing surprises me anymore in politics, really, especially after this last gubernatorial election. I think the New York Knicks will at least make the NBA Finals, and I think the Mets will surprise everybody and get the final wild card spot, or at least I hope so.
I hope so, and I pray so.
So for me, I think 25 is just a year of unexpectedness. You had the high highs and the low lows. I think even going into that, and I think we talked about last year, Alan, about needing to make sure you found out for things. And I think finding an outlet to get away from things, and being important to turn the screen off, get away from the phone, go do something fun. I think it was really important. I think it played a role for me this year. Especially looking to the future of what goes on. I agree. There's a lot of unknowns. I think my prediction is I don't think Chuck Schumer is going to survive as the Democratic leader. I just don't think he's just bungled it. I think there's a massive push for a new generation to come in and replace these octogenarians. So I think it's going to be, I think the sunset of that time is coming. The question is it going to be so far to the left? Or is it going to be
what's scaring the hell out of me?
Or can we get back to what we like to do here, which is centrism?
I hope so. If we get a center right or center left, I can be delighted. The accent is on center.
Yeah, exactly. I think if we can get back to that in all areas. And in sports, I'm hoping the Sixers make it to the playoffs. They've been really fun to watch again. VJ Etchcomb has been a fantastic pickup for things. The Bears have been a lot of fun to watch. They got my favorite Mundungai, who came from Rutgers, who I'm pissed that the Eagles passed on.
Well, Caleb Williams is a potential super.
And the two-headed monster with Caleb Williams and with Mundungai. I hate the fact the Eagles and so many teams passed on him. I think that's another one of those late-round pickups of someone who has sure firepower off the center.
Well, Hurts comes through when they need him.
That's true. Alrighty, I'll toss it back to you to round this up for our final episode of season 2 of the podcast.
Well, that's it for this episode, and we are hopeful that we will have Brent on plenty of times in the new year. We want to formalize that and let everyone know that. because he is a credit to the show, and he has to have a hell of a good sense of humor the way the Mets have geared themselves in this offseason.
So one long life lesson being a Mets fan.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's it for this show. We wish everybody the very best for 2026, you and your families. I'm Alan Steinberg saying good night and good luck, as Edward R. Murrow used to say, with the accent on good luck. Take care, folks.
Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Dynamic Political Centrism. Check back each week for our newest episodes, and you can catch past episodes online via YouTube and Spotify, and please subscribe to our Substack.